Hello and welcome to Align with God, how to live a spiritual life in this physical world with purpose and abundance. Today, I am thrilled to have with us Dr. Deborah Fryer. She has her PhD in comparative literature. She's an award-winning filmmaker, and she's a sought-after spiritual business coach who works specifically on rewiring your brain for ease and prosperity. Thank you so much, Dr. Deborah, for being here.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Good. I am super, super excited about this conversation. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey, I guess, as well as your work, if you so desire.
Well, that is a huge question. When you ask me to say something about myself, can you be a little bit more specific? What are you wanting to know?
In terms of your journey, in terms of where you are now, a big portion of this actual series is folks that are experts and guests sharing a bit about their journey in regard to aligning with God. And obviously you have a PhD in comparative literature, and now you're spiritual business coach, a sought after spiritual business coach, working with prosperity and rewiring the brain. So there's obviously
So how did I get from here to there? Got it. Yeah. So I went to graduate school, did this PhD in comp lit, and I thought that I was going to be a professor. And I always loved literature. I loved reading. I loved traveling. And I was very steeped in mythology. Specifically, what I was working on was Greek mythology, and how do these myths from antiquity in the Western world carry through to today. And I also have a very strong Eastern strain in me. I teach yoga and meditation, and I've been doing that for almost 25 years. And so these two strains of the Western and the Eastern were very much in battle in me. And I didn't understand money at all. I didn't feel comfortable making money. I didn't feel comfortable having money. I didn't feel comfortable charging for money. And I also was not completely in alignment with my divine purpose when I was in graduate school. I was very much type A, which is great when you're wanting to, write papers and get a PhD or an MD or whatever it is. And I was very driven, and I was running marathons, and I was excelling and achieving. And yet there was this deep emptiness within me. So from my PhD in comparative literature, the next stop in my journey was I decided I actually didn't want to teach. Somewhere along the way, I had completed the degree, and I remember asking myself, well, what do I really want to do? And I had been to this conference on women in the media. It was at the Woodrow Wilson School. And it was super political. And I didn't really see myself at the time as being super political. But I went to this conference because I was interested in women and I was interested in world affairs. And after I came away from that conference, I kind of had this stirring where I felt like, I don't know that I want to be an academic. I don't know that I want to be a professor. So I met with the person who'd organized this, and she gave me one of the best pieces of advice that I still use today. And she said, if you could do anything that you wanted to do, what would it be? And I started in with all of these excuses. Well, I can't because my mom, I can't because my dad that, and I can't because my advisor, and I can't because of my student loan, and I can't because I don't have any money. And she said, stop. You are putting up fence after fence after fence. I didn't ask you about all your obstacles. I asked you, what do you want to do? So I got this idea in my mind that I wanted to be where I wanted to work for the Foreign Service. I wanted to be a cultural attaché. I wanted to travel the world, speak foreign languages, meet people from all these different cultures. So this led me down the path of, first I took the Foreign Service exam and I passed it. And then I had to have an interview, and they said I was supposed to wear pantyhose. And I was like, oh, no, that won't work. I don't want to do that. And then it led me into a filmmaking career, which I totally loved because it let me do all those things I wanted to do. It let me travel the world. It let me speak foreign languages. Let me hear about other people's stories. Let me work with visual imagery and different music. And it was super awesome. And I loved it. And I got a lot of accolades for it. And my income was like this because I was a freelancer. And so if I was on a project, there was awesome money. And if I was not on a project, there was no money. And when there was awesome money, I felt good about myself. And when there was no money, I felt like I had been flushed to the very bottom of the deepest toilet on the planet. And so you can see where this is going. My mindset around money was really in the toilet because I thought I need something outside of me to validate me. I needed a job. I needed money. I needed, a credit on a movie. I needed something outside of me that would make me feel cool about me. And inside, there was no self-validation. There was no self-knowledge. It was like astonishingly void. And I say astonishingly void because I thought that I had figured it out. I thought I had a fancy degree, which I did. I thought I was strong because I'd run a bunch of marathons, so I was strong. But inside, I just was racked with self-doubt. I didn't have that much confidence. I didn't have that much self-esteem. I didn't know what to do. So I thought, well, I'll go to medical school. That's what I'll do. I'll get a real job and a real paycheck and real respect, and that will be the answer. That will satisfy this desire for me to earn money consistently and have respect and blah, blah. So I did that whole path to go to medical school. And the really silly thing is I had never taken a science class in my life.
Wow.
I'd been doing yoga and meditation and reading books and learning foreign languages and playing musical instruments. I was so in my right brain, which I loved and do love. And science was completely new for me. And it was hard for me. And I did really well at it. And right in the middle of this experience, I had a moment that changed everything, which is that my dad died suddenly. And I was working in the anatomy lab at the time. And it was my job to go into the anatomy lab and remove the heart from the cadaver. And this was the day after my dad died of massive coronary arrest. So it was a huge moment for me to do this. And what I got in that moment from the heart, from holding the heart in my hands, from actually getting into the body and seeing how the heart is so protected and how the heart really sets the rhythm for everything. And that this pulsation of expand and contract and take in and let go is such a natural rhythm to everything we do. And like that, everything shifted for me. And I realized I had been running my film business completely backwards. All I'd been doing was giving. And if I wasn't producing, I thought there was something wrong with me. I didn't understand at the time that rest is just as important as productivity. And you can't produce, it's not sustainable without rest. That was huge for me. I also realized that I was running 100 miles an hour towards medical school, trying to get validation from something that wasn't in here. And I realized through that experience of losing my dad, or that's such a euphemism, but of my dad leaving his body and of me holding a physical heart in my hands, that everything I needed was in me. So I went back to my film business. I decided, I didn't go to medical school, and I decided I'm going to run my film business by the rhythms of nature, by the rhythms of the body. Right? Because in our body, we know how to take in breath and let it go. Very simply. We don't have to think about it. Mm-hmm. We know how to get excited when we want to, when we're running or we're meeting a deadline, or we just want to run a lot of energy through our system. The body knows how to do that. We don't have to think about it. And the body also knows how to rest. It knows how if we get out of the way. So I just decided I was going to take that rhythm really, really seriously into my business. And within 9 months, I think my income increased by 500%. I wasn't doing anything different. I didn't raise my rates. I was still making films, same thing I had always done, but there was something about my vibration that was different. And what I want to say that is that I was so in the flow of everything that is. I was the flow. I am the flow. And that ease of this is such a calm way of being. And, we don't know how do we hook up with the all that is, with the totality, but there's this 100 monkey theorem that, I can be thinking something here and somebody else over here. And that energy gets gets transferred, gets transmitted, and we're all receivers of that. So in my first year of just me honoring my rhythms more honestly, by resting more, by actually charging for the work I was doing. I had been doing a lot of work for free because I wasn't comfortable with money. So I'd rather do the work for free than have money. And another just, meditation, tapping, yoga, journaling, chanting, dancing, baths, lots of mindset, mindfulness, parasympathetic nervous system tools I was integrating. My entire experience changed. And then people started coming up to me and saying, Deborah, what are you doing? You're so happy. You're so calm. You've lost a bunch of weight. You seem really at ease. Like, what are you doing? And like, can I have some of that? And so people just started coming to me. I actually didn't have a coaching business. So I started a coaching business, and I integrated in my coaching business everything I know from filmmaking. So there's a lot of visualization, a lot of the language of what are the stories we tell ourselves, what are the images that we're focusing on in our minds, because that visual information and that narrative information that we're constantly reiterating is actually creating very strong, solid neural paths in our system. And, in this organism, those neural paths that are consistently, repeatedly retraced are releasing cascades of neurotransmitters that either send us into fear and stress and anxiousness and self-judgment and separation from all that is, or they allow us to access the all that is, to align with God in a way that is natural for us to do if we stop being in resistance to it. So I use the filmmaking and the narrative. That's where the filmmaking and the storytelling come into it. And I use also everything that I learned on this path to medical school and working in the anatomy lab and 20 plus years of yoga and meditation to help people really understand, how do you rewire your nervous system so that it is on your side rather than being in battle with you. So that's how I got here was,
Yeah.
I went through these thickets of self-doubt and who am I and how am I going to figure out my own thing? And it turned out that figuring it out, thinking about it, was actually not the way. The way was getting out of my way and connecting with what's up here that's bigger.
I love that the person that asked you, what would you do if you could do anything? Pointed out that so frequently she said, stop giving me all the excuses or all the obstacles. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure now that you're in your business, in your coaching business and do all that you do, you see that all the time, particularly with money, right? Because folks they categorize off money as something different than spiritual, how you live your relationship with God. Yeah, but it's money. It's not exactly, no, it's actually the same. It's the same thing. It's not separating off like we tend to do. And so what do you feel some of the biggest hurdles for folks to get over, particularly with money, are?
Such an awesome question. You just dropped a whole bunch of things and I want to pick them all up. So one of them was the obstacle course. So we're all setting up obstacle courses for ourselves, and we're setting up these obstacle courses just like at the gym, or if you like, I remember when I lived in Germany, there was this thing called Trim Dich where you would run around and there'd be like a couple pull-ups and a couple sit-ups and a bench. Yeah. And that was to strengthen different areas in your body, to strengthen different muscles, to create more balance and, put you in different orientations in space. So we do the same thing mentally to ourselves, emotionally to ourselves. And we're actually all the time setting up obstacle courses for ourselves so that we can grow emotionally, so that we can grow spiritually, so that we can grow intellectually. And most people really, really resist this because they don't like to take 100% responsibility for how powerful they are. Mm-hmm. And, from my perspective, I don't see any other way to engage in this incarnation because I am always operating in the physical. Let's call this thing I can touch the physical and the non-physical. All this space around me is the non-physical. You and I and everybody here who's watching are all communicating through the non-physical. I have zero idea how it works, right? I'm sitting here in my living room. You are somewhere, I'm guessing the Midwest from your accent, right?
I'm originally from Michigan, yes.
Yeah, I heard that. And like, so you're somewhere and you have viewers and I have viewers all over the world. And how is my image and your image and my words and your words getting translated in this, right? Like this non-physical thing, something's happening, right?
Right.
And people are always trusting the thing they can see, and they don't trust at all the non-physical, except that the non-physical created all of this technology that we're using, right? It came out of somebody's brain. So the non-physical, call it God, call it spirit, call it all that is, call it the quantum field, call it the God field, the Sa, the universe, whatever you want to call this thing that we can't see, it's clearly operating because we're all sitting there interacting, right? How is that happening? I have no clue, right? My brain, I'm smart, but I don't understand that, right? So like, there's a perfect example of how we get stuck with money. Because with money, we think, I need to see it first before I'm going to believe it. I need proof that there's money here before I'm going to interact with it. And what I'm presenting here is that I have no idea how this technology works. I trust that it's going to work.
That's pretty freaking amazing what you're saying right now. Like,
right?
your analogy on it.
We're all living it. Okay, so here's the second thing. I'm breathing air. You're breathing air. Everybody who's watching this is breathing air. And that same air is circulating the entire planet. And all 8 billion of us, right, are breathing that same air. And all the toxic chemicals are in there, right? And all of the aerosols and, you know, all the stuff that's circulating around our atmosphere, the universe is literally coming into me. Now it's circulating in me. And then I exhale, I'm putting me back into the universe. Right. How can I be separate from that? I don't know. I'm drinking water, right? So I have a glass of water.
Yeah.
Where do you think that water came from? Right? Like there was the ocean, it evaporated, it made clouds, it got carried around, it rained, it snowed, it came down as snow melt, and then it eventually made its way into the tap in my house. Now it's going into my body, it's going through my filtration system, back out to the stream and the river and the ocean, and it's going to evaporate again. How can I be disconnected from that? So when you ask what are some of the big things that I hear about money, well, I hear those are two big objections. One is that, money, I don't see it, therefore I don't have it. I hear this all the time. The number one objection is I can't afford it because right now it's not physically in my bank account. That's so irrelevant because money is constantly coming through you all the time. In fact, right now, there are billions, trillions of bits electronically of money flowing through you, right? Because there are ATMs all over the world. How do you think money moves around either, right? Like, I don't understand that either, but I know it shows up when I need it.
It's really interesting what you're saying. One of the things that, right, everybody has different experiences as to how they experience truth. And the truth of what you're saying, you describe it a very different way. And I've studied this stuff for a long time. You describe it a different way. And this just makes me chuckle and smile at the uniqueness of our experiences. And that is say, oh, I have no clue how this whole thing works. But the fact is I do know I'm not separate from it because of all the answers you just gave.
Yep.
So it's really pretty ridiculous that I don't trust this thing because I am it.
Yes.
And now it's just, this is pretty profound. And I always chuckle at how, because I've heard and studied and know a lot and have grown exponentially and have my own. But you put it a very unique, your way. You put it your way in your processing and how you did it. And I want to point out to the viewers, the way that I interpret this is you had your journey. You got your doctorate in comparative lit. You then went to you thought you were going to go do the foreign liaison, that line. Then you went to do filmmaking and then you noticed a few things. And then so my point is, in your process of aligning through this experience and this existence comes your opportunity to give your gift in
Yeah.
a way that's unique to you, and it fits for the people that come to you.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. You know, when I was making films, I make films about the environment. And so I make films about water and about air quality and about biodiversity and sustainability and the carrying capacity of, you know, what do animals need in order to continue to thrive. And for years, it didn't occur to me that I was part of that. I kept making me be separate from that.
Mhm.
And then I just had this like, oh gosh, I'm part, like, how can I not be part of that? I'm making films about the environment, but I'm pretending like I didn't evolve in the same way that everybody else did, you know, and I had to go into this scientific path because I was so doubting my own experience. And I think in our culture, we're very used to giving science all of the authority, and science really, you know, came about in the last couple hundred years, that we're able to see insides of cells, and we're able to look into fMRI machines and see neurons firing, and you know, sequence genes and isolate proteins and all kinds of things that were unimaginable, you know, before the invention of electron microscopes, right? And yet there were yogis that were having these experiences
Yeah.
thousands of years ago. Look at paintings, look at Leonardo, right? Like, long before we knew these things, people knew these things. And, you know, whether you're looking at Chinese medicine and the meridians and qi, or looking at Ayurvedic medicine and how prana flows, or looking at a chiropractic model, which is looking at this, and you can look at the chakra system and you can see the nerve plexes actually line up over the chakra system. You can see that energetically there are pockets of energy that actually map onto our structure, right? Did a yogi sitting in a cave 3,000 years ago have access to this information? Yes, in the body. It wasn't something outside of the body. And we're so trained to look outside of ourselves for proof that what we know is true. And the work that I do with people actually turns that lens inside to you. It's kind of like rack focus on a camera, where I'm sure you've seen this if you just imagine a movie where something in the foreground is in focus and the background is blurred out. And then it's called racking focus. And all of a sudden the foreground is blurred out and the background
Yeah,
is.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And we do that all the time in our minds, where we focus on the past. If you actually even think about the way that your brain is situated in your body, it's kind of hilarious, because your brain is behind you, right? I'm facing
Right,
forward,
exactly. Yeah.
but my brain is behind me, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's from here
Yeah.
back. And all my brain knows is what it already knows. So my brain de facto knows only what is in the past, because it files it away based on what has happened in the past. And I remember when I heard this, when I was on this path to medical school, and they were talking about association areas in the brain. And I was like, what's that? I don't have any reference point for that. I don't know what an
Right.
association area is. What an
Right.
association area is that your brain either has incoming stimulus or it has an outgoing message. That's basically how it works, right? You got a two-way street between everything out there coming in here and your brain interpreting it and sending a signal back out. And so your brain associates, is this safe? Is this not safe? Is this threatening me? Is it not threatening me? Is this going to kill me? Can I eat this? Can I drink this? Can I hang out with this person, right? It's really like safe, not safe. It's pretty black and white from your brain's nervous system. And so when I started to realize that, I realized, well, a lot of the stuff I'm reacting to is really ego-based. I'm afraid of making a fool of myself. I'm afraid somebody will be mad at me. I'm afraid I'll say the wrong thing. I'm afraid I'll look stupid. I'm afraid I'm really not that good. Like, there was all this protection from my ego that I just made up, right? Like I just made up this story.
Yeah, I love it. You're hysterical to me, because these are, let me think of the right word. These are very, so the truths are very simple. Are they always the easiest to bring in, absorb, let resonate? No, you take some what are very complex, oftentimes are presented in very complex ways, and you very much break it down to a very simplified level, and you bring humor into it, and you're just like, well, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And so I greatly appreciate, I just greatly appreciate your process and how you present it.
It's so easy to complicate things. We're so used to complicating things. I'm not sure why we do it. I think the reason that we do it is that the thinking makes us feel like we're in control. And when we're thinking, all we are able to access is what's already there. So it, by definition, is very limiting. If I'm trying to come up with a solution and all I can access is my own experience, all I am going to retrieve is my own experience. Whereas when I'm aligning with God, when I'm aligning with something bigger, then I have access to all that is. And, I like to say that our own individual presence and knowledge is like one pixel in the giant, mega, ginormous jumbotron of life. And that one pixel does not define the entire jumbotron, but we mistake it for the truth. And it's a part of the truth, right? What I know is a part of the truth, but there is so much truth out there, and I'm very limiting if I assign only my version of the truth as the entirety of the truth. I'm very limiting and limited. So when I'm able to access more, then, my truth is part of that. It's contained in that, but it's not all of that. People do really complicate it. And, that gives us a semblance of control. It's actually way easier to relinquish that control, but it doesn't feel like it's easier until you do it. And then you realize it is.
I always give the explanation with regard to that is it takes far less energy. However, the initial component can feel far more intense.
Right.
As soon as you get past that, then you flow into the ease. You allow yourself to flow into the ease. Would it be fair to say that your work facilitates people coming into the space of understanding and truly being and knowing that they are a part of all that is, of God, and what that actually means to be in that space? And then in doing that, they begin to understand that money is no different than anything else.
Yeah.
And that this has been a big one lately. And I have been talking to a great deal of my clients about it. There is no lack. There's no lack of time. There is no lack of money. There is no lack of energy. There is no lack. There is only divine existence. Whether or not we're operating in that is a totally different story. And that comes to choice. And it goes back. So would that be fair to say with regard to your work, though, in terms of you assist people in understanding, being, living as a part of the whole, and that in the whole, there's no categorization, there's no separation?
Yes, I totally agree with that. There's one little piece of what you said that that for me, I would want to clarify. I completely agree that there is no separation. The part that I heard you say was that people may be in or not in divine existence. And I think there is nothing but that. And
I agree completely.
Always agreeing with us, and that you are always on purpose. You are always getting exactly what you need. And even if you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't afford anything right now, you are creating that because you need that right now. You need to be in that victim mode. You're doing that because of self-preservation. You're doing that because you're scared. You're doing that because you're running some old programs that say it's going to be really, really hard to make money, or I don't like money, or I can't be spiritual and rich, or I don't trust money, or any variation of what you're running in your subconscious programming, aka your nervous system. You're not feeling safe in your relationship to yourself.
That's
right?
a profound way to put it, in that you're not feeling safe in relationship to yourself.
So when you're feeling I can't afford it, you are separating you from the flow. You're trying to take yourself out of the flow. You're trying to put yourself on the riverbank, and you're watching the river flow, and you're saying, I'm not part of that. And that's only a story that you're telling yourself. And you're telling yourself that because it actually feels safer for you right now not to be in the middle of the river. That's all. You are still, I mean, the bank and the river are still part of a divine creation. And the universe is always co-creating with you and you with it. And you are always creating exactly what you need for yourself. So this is kind of a quantum flip in the victim story of I can't, that's off limits to me, I'm never going to make that. Other people can get rich, but I can't. You know, that's just a very convenient way for you to justify your choices. And your choices are your choices.
Mm-hmm.
They're there uplifting you to help you grow into what's next. When you decide that you are, in fact, as powerful as
Yeah.
then you are. And when you decide I'm not that powerful, guess what? Then you're not. There's a really well-known Henry Ford quote. He says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And this is why I love this mindset work, because the brain is very willing to be reformed and reshaped
Oh,
and
yeah.
molded. This is what neuroplasticity is. And you are the creator and you are the creation. How fun is that?
Yes.
I mean, you are truly limitless unless you choose that you'd rather be limited because that feels better for you. That's fine. A lot of people like that, right? There's no judgment on that.
It
It's
just
just
is what it is, and it's your choice. That's all.
right. I mean, look at our physical structure, right? There's part on the surface that's like really soft and beautiful, and we want to touch it, and we want to interact with it, and inside it's full of shit, right? I mean, literally, right? Like there's
Yeah.
composting that's
Yeah.
happening inside the system, and at the same time, I'm making new cells all the time. Why? Because my body's really smart and it knows how to repair something that's been damaged or to get rid of something that's old and not working. You get to do the same thing with your thoughts. You can repair thoughts that aren't working for you. You can bring in new ones. You can release old ones. You're completely the commander of your ship.
What a gift. What a gift. And on that note, we could clearly go on with this for quite a long time. But we need to wrap things up. What is it that you're offering the viewers today?
Oh, well, I'm so excited to share with you all. So thank you all for listening to this and sharing with us and dancing with these ideas. I have a couple of things that I would love to share for you, with you. Number one, I wrote a book that's called Best Brain Hacks, 108 Scientific, Spiritual, and Sensual Strategies for Success. Yeah. And it has 108 super fun, easy to do at home exercises that will help you get more into the state of ease and calm and confidence and fun and really align with that sense of openness to all that's here for you. That is totally free. You can click on the link. And I'm also offering something that I hardly ever offer, but I am offering it for this because I think y'all are the perfect recipients of this, which is that we've talked a little bit about your nervous system and how your relationship to money is mapped very specifically and loudly in your nervous system. Every time you think about money, you're going to have a reaction viscerally, somatically. You're also going to have a thought. And so I'm going to help you dig into some of that so that you can actually see the invisible. I'm going to help you see your subconscious programming. And I'm going to help create for you a specific and personalized map of how money is hiding out in plain sight in your nervous system. It's a special blueprint that is going to reflect your particular relationship with money so that you can find the treasure that is already in you waiting and make as much money.
Amen.
Yeah. So all that information will be down below, and I would love to share more of that if it resonates with you.
Thank you, honestly, from my heart to yours, for taking time out of your schedule, your all that you have going on, and sharing with folks. You brought a lot of smiles, and I so appreciate your different, unique approach to this. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. I just love sharing this. As you can tell, it really
right.
And I think it's really fun that we get to live in this amazing electrical magnetic playground that can create anything.
That's awesome and a great way to leave folks. From my heart to yours, folks, I hope that you were able to take something in that Dr. Deborah shared today and truly maybe choose something different for yourself and create some change and some money. too. Until next time, much love.